Hello, welcome to Dice Tower. I'm Wendy Yi.
And I'm Chris Yi.
And today we're going to be reviewing 3 kids games.
These are all games aged from 6+ to 8+, basically. And yeah, you could play them with, your other adult friends, I suppose. But really, these are aimed and geared towards kids.
I mean, if I can make a s'more as an adult, I can play a game about s'mores.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you really love Pusheen cats and that's your whole personality, and you love Gaia Project.
Let's start with Pusheen, and then we'll get back to tell you how we feel about it.
Pusheen is a speed stacking game where one person is going to flip over a card and then everyone is going to race to try to build that image exactly. And you'll build it tall-wise, not laying down like I am right now. But you want to make sure that everything is correct. For example, that guy's looking down. We don't want that. We want him to look up. And the first one who's done says Pusheen. They get checked. If it's correct, they get the card. If not, then everyone else gets to continue, and then whoever gets it next will get the card. Just to show off the production issues, as you can see, the tails are facing inwards in this picture and outwards on the actual characters. Even if you flip them around to the other side, they still remain outwards, but on this picture it's wrong. This guy, his face is faced towards the curve, but on the actual pieces, it's always towards the angle. As you can see, this one is correct, but the majority of the deck is actually incorrect. All the rest of these right here all have the curve by his face.
All right, so Pusheen, this whole art style thing, what is the lore behind it? Because
Pusheen the cat
get it.
was born in a rural village outside of Tokyo in 1873. Parents, samurais, and lawyers. No, I don't know what the lore is. It's just a drawing, right?
Now I want to know samurais and lawyer. Now I want this backstory. Fanfic, please.
Pusheen fanfic below.
Yeah, it's something that is so cute, and our daughter adores it. Like, we play this game all the time.
This is one of our most played games as a family, yeah.
It is. Hey, do you have 2 seconds to play a game? Yes. Our daughter if she doesn't get family time every night, she freaks out. She's like, I didn't get enough family time. We're okay. This takes 5 minutes. Pusheen.
Right. We can play this exactly where you're like, you already have to go to bed. And so, yeah, is it groundbreaking? Is it an amazing game? Not at all.
No.
Is it one of our most played games in our household? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, here's where this does grind my gears, unfortunately.
It does have problems.
It does. It has actual component issues where the pictures on there are not symmetric. So there's a little cute hamster and its tail sticks out one side. And when you look at the pieces in the picture on the cards, there are rounded edges and square edges of the different tiles. And so it's a game about getting all the little details right. And it's cute because our daughter can be like, oh, Dad, you built that piece backwards. And I'm like, oh, I didn't win the race to build it first.
Right. So now it's your turn. You can finish.
Yeah. That means that all the card art and the pieces have to match, and they don't.
It is a real problem, and it's a real problem that we can't just push to the side. However, I do know that I just choose, and we have this discussion, as my daughter chooses the picture. She's going to follow exactly what the screen printing is, and I'm going to follow the outside edges and not worry about the screen printing. That's how we determined that it's still playable and we still use it and it still works. But that is a serious problem when you're making a game where almost all the cards are printed wrong. It's so weird that there's one card that actually is printed correctly.
The long sloth.
And I'm like, you're just using the same graphics for all the cards. Like, what happened?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a mirroring issue or something.
Yeah,
but
something.
It really drags down. I wouldn't give this game an incredibly high score to begin with. It is fun and it's very playable of a game.
Mm-hmm.
But with the production issues, it might sound harsh. I'm giving this a 4. I think that those production issues are extremely major, and I would have a hard time recommending this to somebody and saying, as a huge caveat, right, you have to make sure. Now, I don't know if there's another printing of this necessarily. We're going off of what we have.
Right.
Maybe there's a corrected printing or something out there. And at that point, I would give this game a 6, right? Maybe a little bit higher than that.
Okay.
Because it's fun. And so as long as your copy doesn't have printing error, but with those errors as we see them, I really have to dock it because it's not just like, oh, some of the pictures are wrong. The pictures are the game.
Okay, I get what you say about the pictures are the game. For me, this is a 6.5. I think because it just gets played so much. Mm-hmm. I have chunky fingers. I have trouble stacking quickly. because of that, because they're very tiny pieces. And so I feel like it puts, I don't know, it makes it so that adults have a little bit of that disadvantage. That's what I'm looking for. That disadvantage. And so I think it's good for kids. It's good for families. It can be a 2-minute game if you want to just play 1 or 2 rounds, or it can be something that you actually like play the whole scenario. So 6.5 for me. I think it's super cute and I think that it works, but I can't quite recommend it because of the printing issues.
Yep. All right. Well, that's Pusheen, the stacking game. Also from Alley Cat Games. Next up is Tic Tac Trek, which I feel like shouldn't that have been called Trek Tac? So anyway, this is a small tin game that Wendy's going to show you how to play.
In Tic Tac Trek, players are going to make 3 in a row, tic-tac-toe style, and the goal of the game is to get your bonfires out and to be able to score them. So on a turn, a player is going to draw a tile, and they have to place that adjacent to a tile that's already of that color. Also, they are X's and O's, so depending on which side you're playing, you can flip it to that side. So it is X's turn right now. They're going to place over here adjacent to this light green, and that will make a 3 in a row. They then place their bonfire on that spot. And then on O's turn, they may also have drawn something. They have this O here, and they would love to place it here, but they can't, but instead they'll place it over here. They also get a 3 in a row, so they'll go ahead and place that bonfire there. The game will continue until all the tiles have been drawn. And then after that, players are going to count up all of the adjacent spaces next to their bonfires that don't have tiles next to them. So you want your bonfires on the outside edges, not around anything, and then you'll gain points for each one of those spaces, and the person with the most points wins.
So as was highlighted at one of the game shows in Dice Tower West, Tic-Tac-Toe is the lowest rated game on Board Game Geek. And so
you can only go up from here.
So one of the fun things is I feel like there is a plethora of games improving upon the idea of Tic-Tac-Toe. And I feel like there's like 5 games that are just released or coming out. There's a party game from Explorade, and then there's a couple of like Tic Tac Boom and stuff. And so this one I was curious about because it's a little tile layer, and it's a very cute production. One of the things that Alley Cat Games does super well, like with Pusheen, is that really charming small production quality in these tin games.
Yeah, the pieces are the right kind of chunky to where they're easy to pick up. They're easy to place down. It is a little bit difficult to see the X's and the O's underneath the fire. I feel like there's a little bit of a struggle there for me to be like, is that my piece or your piece?
Yeah, when you put the scoring token out there. And it's really cute that it is a circular fire pit or the X with the 2 pieces of wood. You know, it took me a second to be like, oh, X's and O's. I get it. Right?
Yeah. It's cute.
It is very cute. What I started doing was just for the visual clarity, not like house ruling as much as Pusheen, but what I did was like on the X's, I laid them straight, and then with the O fires, I kind of like tilted them a little bit, just so I was like,
just a little bit easier of a visual reminder.
Yeah, that one's Wendy's scoring, that one's mine.
Yeah. What I think is fascinating about this game is that, for one, tic-tac-toe kind of sucks on its own, but the reason why kids play tic-tac-toe is because it's so easy to pull out anywhere. You're sitting in a boring doctor's office. You're like, oh, yeah, I have a notepad and a pen. Let's play tic-tac-toe. You're sitting, you know what I mean?
It's pre-printed anywhere. On your restaurant, your kid menus and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And so I feel like because this is in a tiny box, you could bring this with you. It could fit in your purse, and you could be like, okay, kids, let's play this. And so I think that I think is clever, and I appreciate that. The actual game is also a fine game. There's a little bit of randomness to it, and I think that there's some pulls that can lead to the game being more fun or less fun.
I think if you pull out the lake tiles, the wild tiles early, then what will end up happening is all of the green tiles will be clumped together, all the brown tiles will be clumped together, and that tends to make the game less interesting. I almost prefer it when there's not one of the lake tiles, the random one, or the wild ones, in the opening 2. Because at that point, you're like, okay, it's going to be one of those games, right? We played this a lot of times.
Yeah.
And the most interesting ones are where the pieces can be more split up, I find. Also because that means that you'll have more opportunities for scoring at the end of the game, putting out your campfires in more open spaces rather than getting them surrounded early.
Right. And I think that is an odd part of the fun, is that you could get a ton of 3 in a rows, but then if you don't have your fires on the outside, you're getting like almost no points. Yeah. You're like, oh, I did a whole bunch of fires at the beginning. This was great. And they're all surrounded. And so now I have 3 points.
Right.
Like, it doesn't feel good.
So I think the game is a little swingy feeling, not just between players, but between plays of it in general. Like, oh, this is one of those games where, it was less interesting, and it was like 8 points versus 7 points. And then there's other ones where it is more dynamic. Like, oh, yeah, we got like 15 points each. Something like that. That feels cool. So I don't know. Just overall, it's cute, and it's supposed to be a riff on tic-tac-toe. It's not supposed to be anything huge, right?
Yeah, so I think for this one, I'm going to give it a 6. I think that this game is fine. I think that it fits in a bag. I think it can meet those needs if I want a quick, easy travel game that I can play at dinner while we're waiting for our food. But it's not one that I'm going to ever want to really come back to and pursue on my own. And like I said, like, it's a little bit hard to see those X's and O's. It's not a big deal. But I think that just the dynamics of the game don't have enough there that I want to play it time and time again.
It's got 2 real designers on there, Brett J. Gilbert, Trevor Benjamin. It's fun to see them work in something so cute. Mm-hmm. And I'm also giving this one a 6 because I think it's I think you're at the mercy of how much fun you'll have based on the tile pool, but it is also still kind of fun. And like I said, a nice riff on tic-tac-toe. You could easily play this with your kid, and it'll be more fun than playing the tic-tac-toe on the restaurant plate serving plate thing, like waiting for your food. This could be a great restaurant game for that sense.
Yeah.
All right. And then last up,
we have S'mores Galore.
Oh yeah.
This marshmallow is the cutest. This is why we saved it for last.
Exactly.
So I'm going to show you how to play S'mores Galore, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
In S'mores Galore, players are trying to make the most delicious s'mores by meeting these objectives over here on these cards and collecting them for points. On a turn, a player is going to move their little pointer stick over here to one of the spots that they want to, and then they'll take that whole row or column of cards in order and place it in their lineup. Now, if they ever don't want a card because it doesn't meet an objective or a need, they can flip it over to the stick side. And if they happen to meet an objective that round, then that stick will be worth 1 point. Otherwise, it'll just go into the fire over here and be removed from their area. All right, so on a turn, players can do a variety of actions. We've got burn, churn, return, and then score. And all of that is just different ways to be able to manipulate these so that you can reach your objectives. And then finally, that last one is to score a s'more. So if I score the hot mess over here, I would be getting the 3 points that are worth, plus any sticks that I went ahead and used. So this stick would come over here, so this would be worth 4 points, and I'd place this in my scoring pile for the end game. These then would go into the fire, and we would go ahead and continue from there by flipping over new cards for the next player to take their turn, and once again, they would have to move this particular red arrow to some other spot around here, and then take that row and column. Play will continue that way until players have emptied 2 of these piles, and then you'll count up all of the scoring tiles that you have along with the sticks, and that is how the game's played.
All right, so this game, do you feel like it fits the theme? Do you feel like you're making s'mores by the end of it?
I mean, it's a cute card set collection game, and it's one of those things where the theming of it definitely makes it way better, right? If it was just collect blue, green, and yellow resources, I'd be like, this is fine. Stack them in order or whatever.
What was it making sandwiches? Would you be as excited about sandwiches?
I am a big proponent of sandwiches. I'm not afraid to campaign on a pro sandwich platform, but I think s'mores is a better theme. It's much more cute, and our daughter went gaga over it as well, right? I think that's the thing. But between Pusheen and food, like they know how to market to kids.
Oh yeah. We were each assigned a character that is our personal character, and we are that s'more. But the actual gameplay, it's interesting because originally when we were first learning the rules, I was thinking this game is too simplistic. But then I realized that I think that the core of the game really is trying to time out when you are going to actually trade in your s'mores, because you can flip over and get those sticks and get extra points with those sticks. As well as those interesting actions that you can do to move around and kind of manipulate the pieces in front of you.
Yeah, it can be frustrating when the random market of cards out there changes. Someone grabs it right before you had something lined up. And I think that that's maybe the biggest drawback of the game, is that if you're really married to getting this one thing done and someone else snipes it out from underneath you, you might be kind of stuck there, right, for a little bit.
You're like, I was banking on getting 3 chocolates, and now I have 2.
It's fairly useless at this point. But I think that the amount of actions that you have, like the swapping things, burning two of a kind to grab something from a discard pile, I think that's a good enough way to be able to kind of work your way out of situations.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, it can be a little bit frustrating, but at the same time, a lot of family games are not afraid to have a little bit of that type of frustration in there. Just be aware that that's what this is.
Yeah, I think that straightforward for like an 8-year-old age, I think this is a game that they can wrap their head around. I think that the s'more theme helps with that, as you're like seeing the pictures and they're very clear that you're like, okay, these are what we need. We need these items. We need them in this order. And when you trade them in, you get good stuff. So I feel like it teaches some good skills and is adorable.
Yeah, and I think that's something I look for. This is not necessarily a game that I would come back to for myself, but as a family, that's going to affect what I appreciate in here. I talk a lot about kids' games and say, well, if the game's not exactly for me, but it is for the family, then what do I want out of it? I think that you nailed the hammer on the head in that it teaches some resource management and some like mitigation skills in a pretty accessible way. Right, you grab these 4 cards, and I don't really want 2 of them. I can get rid of the second and the fourth one, turn them into sticks, which if I complete a s'more this turn is points.
Yeah.
That's good. That's some kind of next level planning that you can put into a game like this without being overbearing. And I think that's admirable.
And I think you also can make those choices of, do I want to go for a bunch of basic s'mores, which are not worth a ton of points, but I'm going to try to get a lot of stick cards with them? Or am I going to go for these heavy hitter points and have it take a lot longer to get there? And maybe yes, more sticks, maybe not a lot of sticks.
Yeah.
So I think there's good decisions. Yeah, I think that there's good stuff to teach. So what are you going to give this score-wise?
Score-wise, what I think I'm going to settling on this one, I'm giving this one a 7, right? I think that this is a nice family game. The theme, of course, helps. I think it has, nice production, cute cards. They didn't have to illustrate like 3 different types of marshmallows, 3 different poses of each of the guys, but they did because the target audience is going to appreciate that for this. So I think with those little caveats, be aware that you might have some frustrating moments where you've built up something and then someone takes that card from the lineup. Okay, right? Be aware. You'll have to spend some extra actions rejiggering and fixing your lineup of cards. But you know what? It's good, and I'm happy to play this as a family.
Okay, I'm going to also give this a 7, and I think that this has some good moments where I feel like I'm setting myself up for success, but then I have to do a little finagling, I have to do a little bit of those actions, and it creates that timing element of, can I get this more done before someone else does, before someone comes out, else comes in and kind of steals it. And I appreciate that form of interaction. It's not super intense and it's like not way over your head and rough on kids, but I feel like there's a little bit of that of like, okay, you want to make sure that you have enough action so that you can buy your s'more, you can collect it. So I feel like there's some good decisions in here. I also think that as an adult, I could make it more complicated than I needed to if I felt like I wanted to have a little bit more fun.
Yeah.
I could be like, I'm going to do a lot more actions and fiddle with this and make some cool stuff happen. So I feel like there's enough here for me as an adult to be able to really enjoy playing this with my kids. So 7 for me.
All right. Well, there you go. So that's a look at the 3 games here. If you've played any of these yourself, go ahead and comment below. But more importantly, Pusheen fan fiction. What is the secret history of Pusheen the cat and their many, many animal friends?
Hey folks, thanks for joining us for that video. If you haven't yet, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hey, make sure you check out what's happening, where I'll cover an app on an iOS or a Switch device, and you can check it out along with me. Thanks very much. You've been watching The Dice Town.
Pusheen the cat was born in the industrial sector of Birmingham to immigrant parents. Her father, a steel welder. Her mother, also a steel welder. However, due to a lack of opposable thumbs, they were fired very quickly. They then turned to the only other marketable skill they had, cybersecurity. It was here that Pusheen found access to the internet and invented the meme.